What if I told you a single can of soda could be worse for your liver than a shot of vodka? Sounds crazy, right? But today, we're diving into 3 popular and incredibly cheap snacks that surprisingly cause damage to your body comparable to, or even exceeding, the harm caused by alcohol. We're used to demonizing alcohol, and rightly so, but we often ignore the silent killers hiding in bright packaging right there on the supermarket shelves. I promise you, after watching this video, you will never look at your grocery cart the same way again. Get ready for some major revelations, and maybe a small fridge clean out. By the way, what's your favorite quick snack? Drop it in the comments right now and stick around until the end to see if it makes our blacklist. Before we get to our deadly trio, let's understand how food can possibly be worse than alcohol in the first place. The key lies in how our liver functions. Picture your liver as a chemical factory with many different tasks. Alcohol, or ethanol, is extremely toxic raw material for this factory. When alcohol arrives, the liver drops everything else and scrambles to neutralize it because it's a poison. This detoxification process creates harmful byproducts that damage liver cells, causing inflammation and fat buildup, the well-known path to alcoholic liver disease. Now here's the kicker. Certain food components force our factory to run on a very similar, and sometimes even more destructive, program. They overload the liver, making it produce fat essentially out of thin air, and trigger the exact same inflammatory processes. The end result is a condition doctors call non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. And today, this condition is far more common than its alcoholic counterpart. So let's look at our first villain, the one that cleverly disguises itself as an innocent thirst quencher, or even worse, a healthy product. I'm talking about sugary sodas, packaged juices, and any other drink loaded with added sugar. You might think, what could be simpler or more common? But the devil, as always, is in the details, specifically in the ingredients list. The main culprit here isn't just plain sugar. It's a special form of sugar called fructose, which is often used in the form of high fructose corn syrup. Why specifically fructose? The key difference is this. Almost all the cells in your body can use glucose for energy. But when you consume fructose in large amounts, there's only one organ capable of processing it: your liver. When you eat an apple, the fructose enters your bloodstream slowly, buffered by the fiber. Your liver handles this just fine. But when you drink a glass of soda or juice, you are essentially launching a massive bombardment on your liver. A concentrated dose of liquid fructose. It's like trying to pour a year's supply of fuel into your car's gas tank in 60 seconds. The system simply can't cope, and that's when it starts to fail. Let's take a look at what happens in your liver when this tidal wave, this tsunami of fructose, crashes in. Unlike glucose, which your body can either use for immediate energy or safely store as glycogen, excess fructose takes a completely different metabolic route. And shockingly, this pathway is very similar to the one your body uses to process alcohol. Your liver essentially panics, trying desperately to figure out what to do with this massive amount of substance that no other part of the body wants. The only solution it finds is to convert that fructose directly into fat. This process is called de novo lipogenesis, which literally means creating new fat from scratch. Every single fructose molecule your liver can't immediately process becomes a building block for a fat molecule, specifically a triglyceride. Essentially, when you drink that sugary beverage, you are giving your liver a direct, loud command. Hey, drop everything else. Start manufacturing fat immediately. And your liver, being the obedient worker it is, starts pumping out this fat on an industrial scale. This is the shortest and most direct route to developing fatty liver disease. Now for the most interesting part, comparing this to alcohol. When alcohol hits the liver also starts actively producing fat, which is one of the key mechanisms of damage. But at least alcohol gives us that feeling of intoxication, a warning signal that we're consuming a toxin. Sugary drinks don't offer that effect. They are perceived as harmless. You can drink letters of them, especially when it's hot outside. But for the liver, there's almost no difference. In both cases, the liver receives a flood of substances that need immediate processing, and in both cases, the harmful byproduct is fat. This fat begins to accumulate directly inside the liver cells, the hepatocytes. Imagine that the workers at your factory, instead of performing their duties, start simply stacking garbage right on their workstations. Eventually, there's no space left to work, and the entire facility turns into a landfill. This is exactly what happens in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or steatosis. This is the first reversible stage of the disease, but it lays the groundwork for much more serious problems down the line. Fat accumulation is just the starting point. The body is an incredibly sophisticated system. It perceives these bloated, fat-filled liver cells as something foreign, a problem that needs immediate attention. This triggers a protective mechanism. Inflammation. Immune cells rush into the liver to essentially clean up the mess. This entire process is called steatohepatitis, which literally means inflammation of a fatty liver. And this is where the parallel with alcohol use becomes almost perfect. Chronic alcohol consumption also leads to persistent liver inflammation. This inflammation, in turn, damages healthy cells. The body tries to heal these injuries by replacing the damaged tissue with scar tissue, also known as connective tissue. This healing process is called fibrosis. Gradually, this scar tissue builds up, crowding out the healthy liver tissue until the organ can no longer perform its essential functions. The extreme stage of this process is liver cirrhosis, a life-threatening condition. And yes, you can reach this stage of cirrhosis without ever having touched a drop of alcohol, simply by consuming sugary drinks for years. And the problems don't stop there. A liver overloaded with sugar and fat becomes less sensitive to insulin. Insulin is the hormone that acts like a key, unlocking cells so that glucose from the bloodstream can enter and be used for energy. When the liver stops responding properly to insulin, the pancreas has to crank out more and more of it, just to try and force that glucose into the cells. This condition is called insulin resistance, and it's a direct route to type 2 diabetes. What's more, high insulin levels are powerful drivers of inflammation and further fat storage. It creates a vicious cycle. Sugary drinks cause fatty liver causes insulin resistance, and insulin resistance, in turn, worsens the fatty liver and leads straight to diabetes. Alcohol, by the way, can also lead to blood sugar issues. But the mechanism involving fructose and insulin resistance is considered one of the most aggressive pathways. But what about those zero-calorie diet drinks? They seem like the ultimate fix, right? No sugar? No problem. Well, Don't jump for joy too quickly. Research shows that artificial sweeteners can be just as deceptive. First off, they play a serious trick on our brain. The taste receptors register sweetness and send the message. Heads up, energy incoming. The body prepares itself, releasing specific hormones, but the energy, in the form of calories, never materializes. This deception can seriously disrupt your natural appetite regulation, often causing you to compensate by eating more and usually less healthy food later in the day. Secondly, there is growing evidence that artificial sweeteners like aspartame or sucralose have a serious negative impact on our gut microbiome. They can destroy beneficial bacteria while encouraging the growth of the bad kind. This imbalance, in turn, contributes to chronic inflammation throughout the body, even impacting organs like the liver. So, swapping sugar for these sweeteners is definitely not a case of solving the problem. It's just replacing one issue with another. Let's recap. Our number one enemy is liquid sugar, especially fructose. It hits the liver directly, forcing it to ramp up fat production, triggering inflammation, and ultimately leading to insulin resistance. The way it damages the liver is mechanically very similar to the damage caused by alcohol. The key difference is that sugary drinks don't carry the social stigma or cause the intoxication that alcohol does. This allows us to consume massive quantities, often without ever considering the consequences. This is especially dangerous for children and teenagers, whose livers are even more vulnerable. So, if you want to take the first and single most important step towards supporting your liver health, simply eliminate all sweetened beverages from your diet. Replace them with plain water, unsweetened tea, or coffee. Your liver will thank you immensely. Now let's move on to the second point on our list, a danger that is equally significant. Let's move on to the second item on our list. This isn't a single product, but an entire category, united by a common enemy: trans fats. We're talking about chips, crackers, savory snacks, margarine, spreads, virtually all store-bought baked goods, cakes, cookies, and waffles, as well as processed meals, frozen pizza, and of course, the king of quick lunches, instant noodles. What links all these foods is the presence of partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. This is the primary source of artificial trans fats, which the World Health Organization has deemed unequivocally toxic to the human body. If sugar is considered a metabolic poison, then trans fats are a structural one. They destroy us at the cellular level. The harm they cause to the cardiovascular system is even more established and obvious than the damage caused by moderate alcohol consumption. Many countries have already completely banned or severely restricted their use in food production. But unfortunately, they are still widely prevalent here. So, what exactly are trans fats, and why do they pose such a serious threat? Simply put, they are artificially modified, or even mangled, fat molecules. Scientists initially had what seemed like a noble goal: to take cheap liquid vegetable oils, like sunflower or soybean oil, and make them solid, similar to butter or animal fat. To achieve this, hydrogen is pumped through the oil under extremely high pressure and temperature. This process is known as hydrogenation. As a result, some of the fatty acid molecules fundamentally change their spatial structure, bending into an unnatural trans configuration that doesn't exist in nature. The resulting product, hydrogenated fat, is extremely cheap to produce has a long shelf life, and provides a texture convenient for bakers and confectioners. It's perfect for the food industry, but utterly devastating for our bodies. Over millions of years of evolution, our bodies have never encountered molecules like these. And frankly, they just don't know what to do with them. We lack the necessary enzymes to process them correctly. Let's take a look at a visual representation. Our cell membranes, the outer layer protecting every cell in your body, are composed of 50% fat. They need to be flexible and elastic to effectively bring nutrients in and flush waste products out. Nature designed the right kind of fats for this, which have a specific curved shape. Trans fats, however, have a different structure, straight and rigid. They try to wedge themselves into these membranes, acting like a flawed, crooked brick in the wall of a house. The result is that the entire membrane structure becomes stiff, brittle, and highly unstable. The cell can no longer function properly. Essential processes like nutrient transport, receptor activity, and signal transmission are all compromised. Now just imagine this same process affecting the cells in your blood vessels, your heart, your brain, and naturally, your liver. This is systemic damage, a problem that impacts virtually every part of the body. Alcohol is certainly toxic, but its primary targets are the liver and the brain. Trans fats, on the other hand, deliver a powerful blow to every single one of our trillions of cells. Trans fats are particularly devastating to our cardiovascular system. While heavy alcohol consumption is certainly bad for the heart, trans fats attack the system with a unique level of insidiousness. They deliver a crippling 1-2 punch to our cholesterol metabolism. First, they significantly raise the levels of low-density lipoproteins, or LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol. This is the cholesterol that builds up on artery walls, forming atherosclerotic plaques that narrow the arteries and potentially lead to a heart attack or stroke. Second, and this is the most insidious part, trans fats simultaneously lower the level of high-density lipoproteins, or HDL, the good cholesterol. HDL is crucial because it acts as the body's scavenger, sweeping excess bad cholesterol from the blood vessels and carrying it back to the liver for processing. Essentially, trans fats are simultaneously increasing the garbage in the streets of our city body, while firing all the cleanup crew. No other food product has such a profoundly damaging effect on cholesterol balance. We've established that while fructose primarily causes damage or a fire, mainly within the liver, trans fats set the entire body ablaze. They trigger powerful, systemic, and chronic inflammation. Our immune system perceives cells whose membranes have been compromised as foreign invaders or damaged tissue, and it launches an aggressive attack. This low-grade, persistent inflammation is the root cause of the majority of modern chronic diseases, including not only atherosclerosis and heart disease, but also diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and even certain types of cancer. Chronic inflammation is like a perpetually smoldering peat bog deep inside you, slowly but surely destroying everything in its path. Alcohol consumption also causes an inflammatory reaction, but that response is largely localized to the liver and the gastrointestinal tract. Trans fats, however, make this inflammation total, affecting every single organ system. That is precisely why even trace amounts of them are considered absolutely unacceptable in a healthy diet. The liver which functions as the body's main filter and chemical laboratory, naturally takes a serious hit from trans fats. It tries desperately to metabolize and break these fats down, but it simply doesn't have the appropriate tools, the necessary enzymes, to handle the job. It's like trying to dismantle a modern smartphone using only a hammer and chisel. This futile process puts liver cells under immense stress, causing toxic metabolic byproducts to accumulate, which ultimately leads to significant cell damage and death. This is a direct pathway to developing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD, and further inflammation, known as steatohepatitis. In other words, when you grab a bag of chips or a package of cookies, you are hitting your liver with a double whammy. First, from the carbohydrates that get converted into fat, and second, from the toxic trans fats that directly harm the liver cells. It's a powerful combo attack from which the liver finds it incredibly difficult to recover. The truly insidious thing about trans fats is that they hide in places we least expect. You might not be eating margarine by the spoonful, but you could be getting a huge dose from packaged cookies, snack cakes, movie theater popcorn, or even frozen meals like ready-made patties or dumplings. Manufacturers absolutely love using them because they are cheap and dramatically extend a product's shelf life. So, how do you spot them? Always read the ingredient list carefully. If the label includes phrases like partially hydrogenated oil, shortening, culinary fat, milk fat replacer, or just vague vegetable fat without specifics, there's a 99% chance that you've found trans fats. Manufacturers often use a sneaky trick. If a serving contains less than half a gram, 0.5 grams of trans fat, they are legally allowed to label the product as having 0 grams of trans fats. But if you eat just a couple of these 0-gram servings, you can easily hit a dangerous daily dose. Therefore, the only truly reliable way to protect your health is to completely avoid any product that lists hydrogenated fats in its ingredients. And finally, we come to the third, most subtle and often overlooked enemy of our health. It receives far less attention than sugar or trans fats, yet its potential damage can be just as significant. Meet the culprits: advanced glycation. End products, better known by their acronym AGEs. The English acronym AGEs is particularly symbolic, as these compounds truly accelerate the aging process within our bodies. They form both internally, when we have high blood sugar levels, and externally, entering our system through diet. We find particularly high concentrations in foods cooked using high heat methods. This includes anything fried, baked until a dark crust forms, or prepared on the grill. In other words, the most appealing and aromatic dishes, think crusty steaks, crispy fries, grilled sausages, and even well-browned toast or sweet breakfast cereals, can be true. Bombs loaded with these aging molecules. What exactly are these mysterious things? Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. To put it simply, they are the result of the caramelization, or sugaring, of the proteins and fats within our bodies. Think about that golden, crispy crust on roasted chicken or bread. That's a perfect real-world illustration of the Maillard reaction, a chemical process between amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, and sugars when heat is applied. And it's during this reaction that those very same AGEs are formed. The exact same thing happens inside our bodies, only much more slowly. When blood sugar levels are chronically high, Glucose molecules begin to chaotically bond to protein molecules like hemoglobin, collagen, and elastin. This internal process is known as glycation. As a result, these proteins lose their normal structure and stop performing their intended functions. They become stiff, brittle, and ultimately sticky. Essentially, our tissues are slowly being steeped in caramel, causing them to lose all their elasticity. Whether they enter your body through diet or form internally, AGEs, advanced glycation end products, act like molecular vandals. They literally glue crucial protein structures together, creating what are known as cross-links. To illustrate, imagine the collagen fibers in your skin. The ones responsible for its elasticity are like flexible springs. AGEs effectively weld these springs together, transforming them into a rigid, inflexible structure. The result is visible wrinkles and a noticeable loss of skin firmness. The same damaging process occurs in the blood vessel walls. They become stiff and brittle, leading to higher blood pressure and an increased risk of rupture. The lens of the eye clouds over, often resulting in cataracts. Additionally, nerve fibers and kidney cells suffer damage. Furthermore, AGEs trigger severe oxidative stress and chronic inflammation by binding to specific cell receptors and forcing those cells to produce inflammatory molecules. It is essentially like rust, slowly but relentlessly corroding all the systems within our body from the inside out. Let's return to the alcohol comparison. When alcohol breaks down in the liver, it produces a highly toxic substance, acetaldehyde. This is the culprit behind most hangover symptoms, causing nausea, headaches, and wreaking havoc on your cells by triggering oxidative stress and damaging DNA. Now, advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, are essentially the same type of toxins. They either come from external sources like food or form internally when blood sugar levels are consistently high. They also cause powerful oxidative stress and inflammation, damaging cells through a very similar mechanism. Essentially, when you eat heavily browned or fried foods, you are voluntarily introducing a dose of toxins into your body, comparable in effect to the byproducts of alcohol metabolism. The key difference is this. After consuming alcohol, the body activates its natural detox systems. But against the AGEs you consume daily through food, the body has virtually no defense. They accumulate in tissues over years, slowly chipping away at our health. Where do we find the highest concentrations of these damaging compounds? The worst offenders are fried and grilled foods, especially those cooked until they develop a dark, charred, or blackened crust. Sausages, cured meats, bacon, pan-fried meats, and French fries are absolute champions when it comes to AGE content. AGEs are also abundant in foods that combine sugar and protein and are subjected to high heat processing. A prime example is dry breakfast cereals, such as flakes and granola, which often undergo an extrusion process involving immense heat and pressure. You'll find high levels in baked goods, especially cookies and crackers with a deeply browned or toasted surface. Hard cheeses, particularly processed varieties, also contain a significant amount of AGEs. Essentially, the higher the degree of food processing, and the higher the temperature used during that processing, the more of these aging molecules the product will contain. Cooking methods also play a crucial role. Techniques like boiling, stewing, and steaming produce dozens of times fewer AGEs than frying, grilling, or high-temperature roasting. And the worst part is, These three villains often work as a team, magnifying the destructive impact of one another. Take, for instance, a common donut from your local coffee shop. Inside you'll find a massive hit of fast-acting sugar and fructose syrup. That's our first enemy. It's deep-fried in hydrogenated oil, which is a major source of toxic trans fats. Our second enemy. And the high-temperature frying process itself creates a huge amount of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, in the dough and icing. That's our third enemy. The result is a perfect storm for your body. Just one item delivers a triple punch, attacking your liver, your blood vessels, and every cell in your body simultaneously. The same thing can be said for a bag of chips, a slice of pizza, or any fast food combo meal. They always contain that dangerous combination of sugar, unhealthy fats, and products of high-temperature processing. It is the very essence of harm, neatly packaged in an appetizing and convenient form. So, let's sum things up. We have sugary drinks that flood our livers with fructose, forcing them to churn out fat. We have trans fat products that damage our cells structurally and clog our blood vessels. And we have ultra-processed foods packed with molecular junk in the form of advanced glycation end products, which essentially make us rust and age from the inside out. All of these are cheap, readily available, and unfortunately, incredibly popular choices whose destructive effects can easily rival even alcohol. The main takeaway is simple. Just because something is non-alcoholic doesn't mean it's safe for your liver or your overall health. Often the greatest harm hides behind bright packaging, appealing visuals, and attractive prices. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you learned something new and helpful, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future exposés. Now let's go back to the question we started with. Which of these three types of products shows up most often in your diet? Or maybe you've already cut them out completely. Share your experience in the comments below. Let's discuss it.